Parents of identical twins, what was your honey, I switched the kids, moment? So with very few answers. I'll answer this with a summer camp story. We were playing capture the flag. But the teams got to hide their flag. Well, each team in my game had a twin on each team. And the one on my team walked over to the other team's side and asked to be reminded where their flag was. He grabbed it and ran back before anyone noticed it was the wrong one. Ultimate play right there. My cousin has 2 sets of twins. They are 21 months apart. She can tell them all apart. They are all teen boys now and damned if anybody else can. Not even their dad. The younger ones look like the older ones too. So that complicates things even more. It's like she and her spouse are running an illegal cloning operation out of their home. Close bracket. Good kids, all of them. They take advantage of their situations to hilarious levels. They love cosplaying stormtroopers at conventions. And pull pranks at school a lot. I've asked my cousin how she knows. She says it's little details. A tiny freckle on one. Shallower chin dimple on the other. Slight change in voices. Different clothing styles. Act. I'm glad she can keep it all straight. I could never. My grandmother baptized the same kid twice. This is how you get the good evil twin thing. Making them extra demon proof. Jeez. Someone could have been stuck in purgatory. I had a classmate that has a twin sister. One day her twin, her and her boyfriend, went from school by train. Classmate sat with her boyfriend and I sat with her sister. Boyfriend had to use the toilet and when he was gone, they got an idea. Apparently they never tried to switch to see if he would notice. So they quickly switched some clothes, they were dressed similarly, changed their hairstyles and switched the seats. When he came back, he looked at one, confused, then at the other, repeated the action several more times, then looked at his girlfriend and was like, really? While he started laughing. Identical twin here. When I was 4, we were at Disney World with all my cousins who are around the same age. I wandered off for just a minute, and my family took that time to move on to go somewhere else. When my mom was doing a head count, my brother moved and she counted him twice. So it took them a few minutes to realize I was lost. Some nice strangers saw I was crying and noticed I was lost, and helped look for my family. My dad eventually spotted me and hopped over a 7-foot fence to come get me. Security didn't like that very much and they almost kicked him out. But everything worked out in the end. I'm a fraternal twin. Despite this, we looked exactly the same when we were little. As an infant, my grandmother fed my sister twice thinking she had fed the 2 of us. Edit. Wow, I didn't think I would get this many upvotes. I'm glad you all found it hilarious. We still laugh about it to this day. My twin sister. My mom is an identical twin, mirror twins. Her twin lives across the country, but when they get together they find it hilarious to get the same haircut, dress the same and even record voicemails for each other. Her twin has a slightly stronger accent. There was nothing more frustrating as a teenager than coming home and lamenting to my mom and suddenly she goes, "I'm not your mom." When they were kids, they often swapped dates with each other and my mom even tricked her twin's date into buying her chocolate, teddy bear and flowers on Valentine's Day. They also took tests for each other. Growing up, my grandmother would get confused because as infants and toddlers they'd always somehow end up in the same crib or bed and she would confuse who was who. To this day, they still have their own language from childhood and get feelings when the other is in emotional turmoil. Mom of identicals here. Not really one moment, yet, but I had them by C-section and for some reason it's always bothered me that I may have gotten them mixed up when we finally took the hospital bracelets off. They had no real differences as infants, so I think about that at least 5 times a day. Therefore now. Identical twin here. My dad intentionally swapped our ID bracelets many times when we were infants in order to stop any argument about who was older. His words. Coached high school football for a few years. and there was identical twins on the team. During tour days, one of the boys was wearing a crop shirt under his shoulder pads, and I was able to notice he had a giant scar on his stomach from appendix surgery. Anyway, I was very excited because I thought this be the way I could start to distinguish between the kids. Turned out both of the boys had their appendix taken out, so I had to go back to the drawing board on that one. But by the end of the year I figured out which one was which. Mine are only 16 months old, but to us they look different. They have different head shapes. Normally a baby will settle in the pelvic bone leading up to birth. Well, they both can't do that, so one has a more round head while the other's is more oval. So while they have the same features, their head shapes gives them each their own appearance. One has a faint birthmark on his left arm, so I will know if they ever try any tomfoolery or bamboozlement. I will say I verbally get them tossed around. Baby B has been climbing things and getting into mischief lately. Then all of a sudden baby A decided to do the exact same thing. So my default instinct was baby B don't. Baby A. You. Stop that. Double quote. Since this is a fun question that hasn't gotten many responses, I will say I knew a set of identical triplets in high school who'd sometimes go into one another's classes and mess with people. Made for a fun April Fool's Day joke. Had twins in most of my classes that did this in high school too. Took all three to the park. I have boy-girl twins. Twin 1 had a big purple star on the back of her coat. Hood up. She was sliding down the twisty slide. I got distracted by the other two. I had had enough, so scooped the kids up to go home. To my horror I had picked up the wrong kid. This other little girl had the same big purple star on her coat. She was the exact same size and everything. Hood up too. I only noticed when her dad yelled at me, "Oh that my kid." No hard feelings, but a little embarrassing. I'm father of identical twin toddler boys and a 9-month-old, so think I feel qualified to answer this one. Since my wife feels it's so cute to dress them the same, until they will tell us they don't want it. This happens a lot more than one may think acceptable. There are some very small tells that I can find on each. Like one has a slightly different head shape and another has a vein on his forehead in a more distinct pattern from the other. Still hard to tell in dim light. For the most part now I usually try to get them to turn themselves in. Almost like a Jedi mind trick. For instance, when one gets in trouble and is looking guilty, pretty obvious for a 2-year-old. I ask who did it and he inevitably names first the baby, then the dogs, then his brother's name first, conveniently leaving out his own. My dad has an identical twin. Until I was about 4 years old they'd sometimes pretend to be the other to mess with me. After that age I could pretty easily tell them apart. But I couldn't, and still can't, really articulate how to do it to other people. It was just like it's easy. My uncle has a softer face. They have identical looking noses, cheekbones, jawlines, facial hair, etc. Neither is really noticeably fatter than the other or anything. Looking at them side by side there's not really anything that actually looks softer on my uncle's face than on my dad's face. But if I'm pressed to describe how to tell them apart, that's the only way I can come up with to describe it. My mom and brother and sister and aunt and cousins all agree with that too. But if you try to objectively find what about his face is softer, you can't do it. I'm an identical twin, the older and better one, which I will rub in his face forever. It's a bit embarrassing, but my parents were kinda lucky as I had a small birthmark on my penis. Nothing gross or any. Just a small pretty circular dark spot slightly left of center on top of the shaft. When we were babies my dad used to lovingly call us Spot and Knot. So in the first few days he would say I changed Spot. Knot was clean but he's due. Double quote. The embarrassing part is the nickname stuck. But only for me. And my mom loved telling people where it originated. As a kid I didn't realize how weird it was, but as I hit teen years it got more and more awkward. She once told it to my 7th grade crush Becky's parents in front of her at a piano recital and I almost died. It was also weird having to explain to my elementary school gym teacher that no, I didn't have cancer, I was just born that way after he noticed it during penis inspection. My parents have gotten better, but my dad sometimes slips up. Last time I brought my college girlfriend home. When my dad called me spot at dinner, girlfriend giggled and it was awkward for everyone. My dad was an identical twin. As a small kid, the first time I met his twin, my dad wasn't there. I jumped into my uncle's arms and immediately sensed something was wrong. According to my mother, I jumped down and ran away and hid. Honestly, pretty much every parent of identical twins will tell you that they don't really look all that alike to them. Obviously on the surface they do. But I don't think we've ever mistook one for the other. It's not one big thing that makes them different. It's lots of small things that you'd only really notice if you spent every day with them. My younger brothers are identical twins. When they were in preschool, they attended separate classrooms in an effort for them to have some independence and social skills. Fear was they would be twinning and not engage with other kids. Welp. One day they schemed and pulled a switcheroo. It took a bit of time for the teachers to notice that they had the wrong twin in their classroom. Actually, only one teacher did, lol. The teacher figured it out because the one twin wasn't playing with the usual kids. And he couldn't spell his brother's name, only his. And X200B. Edit. The only way to tell them apart is a freckle, otherwise if you just see one twin at a time it's still difficult to tell who is who. Personality wise they are pretty different. Once in my very large high school, I had a teacher stop mid-lecture and stated, "You're not twin A. Go switch back." When twin A came back to classroom, he was really embarrassed at getting caught and asked how she knew. She didn't have an answer. But apparently they had switched on at least 2 other occasions. Most people in the class didn't even know he was a twin. Obligatory not me post. But my aunt had identical twin boys. One Thanksgiving we were teasing them and her that they could very well be the wrong one. My aunt swore up and down that it never happened and she knows for sure which one was which at all times. After the kids went outside, it was quiet for a minute. And my aunt took that big gulp of wine before saying, "Yay. Totally possibly. I used to mark one of their feet with a marker and one day after a bath I couldn't find the mark anymore. Just don't have the heart to tell them." Much laughter ensued. And X200B. Edit. Words.
Thank you for watching.
Subscribe for more.